Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey, Spence, let's trip out.
I'm afraid not every human is as smurfy as they should be, Sapsy.
Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make.
Yeah, certainly. Here we are.
This pizza pie won't pass. Too many calories. Oh, the rest is okay. Natural light! Get off me! Get off me!
I don't know the meaning of the word chip.
Documented Geek Day.
They're doing push-ups in Peoria. They're jogging in L.A. They're exercising everything in lots of crazy ways. But take it from the chopper. Hey, the chopper, yeah, that's me. If you want to have great choppers, exercise your teeth. Exercise those choppers, really chew, chew, chew. Exercise those choppers on some good hard food. Your molars grind, your canines tear, incisors bite right through. So exercise those choppers on some good hard food. Pumpernickel, carrot sticks, crunchy fruits and nuts. Things you really have to chew will make your choppers tough. So take it from the chop, cause choppers know it's true. Exercise is great, but exercise your choppers too. Hey, chopper, how about running a few laps with us? Hey, later, man. I'm eating a celery stick. This is hard exercise.
Nightmare, the game hosted by a video.
I am the gatekeeper!
To win, you must stop it.
Roll the dice!
The video board game Nightmare. The gatekeeper talks to you,
Whose turn is it next?
and you must answer him.
Answer me! Yes, my gatekeeper. Go for it!
Nightmare, a race against time for 3 to 6 very game players.
Let's party!
All right, yeah, I'm going to go. And we are back again with Mr. Harth for part 2. Ernst, if you're nasty.
Yes.
Yeah, we left off last time because, I mean, it went a little long, but then again, there's a lot of information to be gleaned from it. We've been doing this for 30, God, 40, 30-something years.
Yeah, too long. Yeah, like I was joking last time, I've been doing this so long that I've got laser discs of films I've been in. When you have 4 different versions of the same film, you've been doing this a while. And I even though I don't have any of the stuff plugged in, I still have all my VHS. I still have all my laser discs. I still have all the DVDs. But my wife always jokes. She says, we don't need to watch it. That's our retirement plan. When we can't afford streaming and we can't afford the internet and we can't afford cable, at least we can watch all our movies that we own.
I agree with that. I fully agree with that. That's a
just like
well thought out plan.
Just like with our bookshelf of primarily books that we've either started or books you want to read, so you buy it and you stick it on your shelf and then you never open it again. That's our retirement plan too. Eventually we'll be sitting here in the dark with a flashlight reading books. and then once we get power again, we can plug it in and watch. Like I said, I have a bookshelf in the bedroom from top to bottom that is nothing but my movies. So it's a little weird. I don't know. I don't know. Most people probably don't have you both have a wall full of, both have rooms filled with stuff from, Now, just imagine if everything in those rooms was movies you're in. That's basically the only difference over here.
Yeah.
People always say, "Do you collect?" I collect stuff that is related to the movies I'm in. I've got books from like Trick or Treat had a big coffee table book that came out. I've got that. I got a big coffee table book for Voyage of the Unicorn. I've got scripts that were published for Capote and Dreamcatcher. So I have like all the soundtracks from all the movies I've been in.
Yeah.
And then, like I was telling Craig earlier, under my bed, I have that's my collector's set is under my bed. It's like every place that we move to, I say, okay, this is the time I'm going to put up all these posters from all these movies I'm in. And they're still in the boxes that they were in when we moved here. And we've been here since 2010. Maybe it's time to start putting something up.
14 years, you got more time. You got another year at least, and then
the boxes are in good shape still, so I don't want to go ruin them. Take off the tape. But no, I've got posters from all, and people think, wow, you're in famous movies. The studio must supply you all this stuff. No, I'm just like any other film nerd. I'm on eBay buying posters, just because I'm in the movies doesn't mean they supply me with anything. I still have to buy the movie, watch the movie. It's like the worst now is when you're in something that's only streaming. It's like, how do I get a copy for my demo reel? It's like, it's like they force you to become a criminal because you got to go and somehow on the black market, you got to find someone that ripped off a copy off of streaming or something.
Yeah.
And I know actors whose movies have just one day disappeared, and now there's nowhere to find a copy of it because with these streamers, once they decide they're not showing the movie anymore, it's not like you can go rent a copy of it somewhere. It's just gone.
Actually, a few of my favorite movies of all time actually hit DVD. And then they never they showed up on streaming for maybe a couple of months and then just disappeared off the face of the earth. I mean, the Feast trilogy, it occasionally pops up somewhere, but like the whole, like all three of them don't. It's only one or two of them. And then From Beyond, the Stuart Gordon From Beyond, right? Like that is a great movie. It's a wonderful movie. Used to come on all the time when I was a kid on local channels.
Yeah.
It was the first DVD that I ever actually rented from Netflix. So, like, I got that thing showed up, and I was like, I'm not sending it back, and I never did. I kept it.
Sounds so weird.
There's no penalty for not sending it back. I kept it.
So you were part of the early use of Netflix when it was DVDs.
Yes. Yeah. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was a brilliant idea, and then I was like, it's even better that they don't penalize you.
Remember, they did a game. Like a gaming one too. I forget.
They did briefly, and then they moved over to all streaming. But like you were saying, it literally a movie will be like there are several movies that I have loved through the course of my life that I have found on streaming, Netflix in particular. And I understand they lose rights.
Yeah,
they do. I get that. I understand how it goes. But man, sometimes it disappears and it doesn't show up anywhere else. Which is my thoughts are it's because there's somebody else that owns it. It's like we're going to start a streaming platform.
Yeah.
No, you're going to reinvent cable. You're fucking.
Or if you're like Warner Brothers, you just dump them. You just get rid of them because it's not making the money you thought you. And so before it's too old, we'll scrap it and we'll take the tax write-off. And like the Batgirl movie that they never even.
Yeah, no, that makes me mad. That makes me really mad.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the artistry of hundreds of people coming together to make something for hundreds, millions of dollars, and then you don't even show it.
We make more money by shelving it than we would by releasing it. But the thing is, that idea, that statement, we make more money by shelving it, is based off of somebody who doesn't understand the material to begin with saying it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's always bothered me about it, which also proves not to sit here and talk shit about, I'm not to be rude about it, but there is a point that Warner Brothers has taken some of the most classic and profitable ideas in American history and shit them straight into a fucking septic tank. repeatedly.
Well, they just did the same with a Scooby Doo film that they produced, and the Looney Tunes film that they produced. It's like, are any of those going to come out? You know, it's like, it just blows me away that you own the IP. It's like your stuff, and you're still not even releasing it because it's
bad.
Because
that's the whole idea. If you have people produce, or you have people behind it backing it based off the idea of turning a profit, but not understanding the source material. So take like one of the big, like the DCU, right? The DC universe. I'm a horror comic book guy. It's my thing. These are the things that have always appealed to me.
Yeah.
I am not saying that I'm a comic book authority, because I'm fucking not. I am not somebody that can go through the minutia of like literally 80 years worth of material and tell you about everything. I can't. What I can do is tell you why it works. The DC, like Marvel figured it out. They figured it out early. It's a comic book movie. Yes, you can make dark parts, but it still has to appeal to people who read the comics. And comic books are not nothing but dark. Yeah. And that's where they fucked up. They fucked it up with every single movie. They made it just like, well, let's make it a darker, grittier reboot every time.
Yeah.
Superman should be like, what was what's his name from Dylan Dog? And he played on, what was it, The Heroes of Tomorrow? Why am I forgetting his name? Jesus Christ. I'm not good with names anymore, apparently.
It's the first
dude the dude that played Superman when they redid Superman, the first time they redid Superman.
Brendan Rouse?
That's it. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So that movie, it's like they almost had it. They almost had it right there, but they went the wrong direction with it. Like I said, well, let's make sure that Lois Lane has been abandoned with his child. It's fucking Superman. That would not happen. It fucking would happen. That's not a fucking storyline that makes sense.
So what do you think of the original, the Christopher Reeve ones?
Love them. I love them. Even as stupid as this fucking throwing the cellophane S off the chest shit was, and the redo without Donner working on it.
Yeah.
Even that shit, I was like, it's still a comic book movie. I can get behind it.
Yeah.
Even watching it now and knowing that, I'm like, it works better. It's better.
Like the original Batman there with Tim Burton, you know, it's like he had the mindset of an animator, someone who understands comics. And the people that complained that it was too goofy, it was too over the top. Well, it's like, if you ever read a comic, you know, like you were saying, not everything. And like now with the Batman movies, it seems like every time there's a new Batman movie, it's darker and darker and
sadder, angrier.
You know, pretty soon there won't be a difference in the voice between Batman and Bane. I mean, it's you know, each time I watch Batman, his voice is getting darker and deeper.
Well, it's like, okay, so if you had the Frank Miller approach to Batman, right? Like when he wrote Batman, Bruce Wayne talking versus when he was talking while he was in the suit, it became a little more manic in the suit. Even the actual font changed a little bit, and that was the idea. So yeah, she'd be changing your voice a bit. And also, and I think Miller, this is a weird off-topic subject, but as far as Batman goes, I think Miller was the guy that really put forth the idea that Bruce Wayne was the alter ego, not Batman. Batman is always Batman. Bruce Wayne is the disguise. Yeah. So like that, I understand. I can get behind the voices. What I cannot get behind, Michael Keaton's Batman managed to make it dark but still light. It was still a comic book movie. Even Joel Schumacher, bat nibbles and all, still understood the source material. I'm not saying that Batman Forever was a great movie, because it fucking wasn't. But it had parts. It had moments of brilliance that felt right.
Yeah.
Like even the conversation between fucking Bat Clooney and Mr. Freeze, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
That moment, that little just moment where he doesn't kick the shit out of a guy. He literally says, "You were better than this once." And he's like, "You're right. And I was." And then they go up. Like, that is a comic book story. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist now. Now all the bad guys are turning into horror villains, and the good guys are turning into dark, sad, gothic, emo people.
Yeah.
But it made $1 billion. That's all that matters.
That was my thing about the newest one, was a fucking gimp mask on Riddler. Like it didn't have to happen.
There was no need. There was just like adding it, but it was the same thing. Like, don't get me wrong, like in the Nolan Batmans, when they introduced Scarecrow, right? The idea of the fear toxin and the way it would affect the mask was cool. That was cool. I was like, hell yeah, that's exactly why you would do that. That's fucking great.
Yeah.
Everything after that, though, I was like, why? Yeah, I mean, even Tom Hardy, and I love Tom Hardy, but why?
So speaking of DC, then what'd you think of Catwoman?
Okay. First off, Halle Berry, love seeing her in it. I love the fact that they went the Eartha Kitt route.
Yeah.
You know? Sharon Stone, I thought, did a good job, even though she wasn't given enough screen time or backstory.
I think it's just a bad movie. It has nothing to do with the comic book side of it. I think
it was a bad movie. It was a bad movie. It was people who didn't understand the source material were writing it for the screen.
Yeah.
Which is what, honestly, has been happening a lot with most of the DC shit. I would say the same thing about the Marvel Universe. The problem with the Marvel Universe is that they are just oversaturating. That's just my opinion. It's not that they're bad. They're all comic book movies. They all make, like, if you watch them and take them individually, they're great. They're fun to follow. But as a whole, there's too much of it.
Well, it's like they've taken the what was special about Star Wars, and they have beaten the hell out of it. Because when there were the 3 Star Wars movies, well, first when there was the 1 Star Wars movie, and that was it, and then you waited, and all of a sudden there was 2 Star Wars movies, and then the 3rd one came out. It was like an event. And then after the 3rd one, when there was no Star Wars until when he came around with the next 3, it was an event and people were looking forward to it. But now it's like, I don't think anybody can even keep track of all the Star Wars stuff that's out there now. And
there's so much to take in, and I don't really I always fall back to watching everything I watched before, so I don't really people suggest stuff, and I just don't. It's way down on my list because I'm comfortable with certain movies.
To me, Star Wars is the first 3 films I saw, and I never really got into anything after those series. So to me, that's Star Wars. I mean, I saw Phantom Menace at the theater when it opened because, like I was just saying, it was an event. It was like, we hadn't seen anything Star Wars. The last Star Wars thing we saw was, that Christmas special. Kind of thing. So, but now I think they've beaten the life out of. That's what happens when you get these corporations that, you take it away from the original creator, and now you have Disney who just sees dollar signs, and they're going to come at you from, when they started making stories and storylines around characters that didn't even speak in the original Star Wars movies.
Little much.
You're stretching it now.
So The Mandalorian is actually a good series. It's a great series, but that has a lot to do with the writing. I mean, it's all back to the writing, right? And some of the stars too, like Timothy Olyphant as a side character in that was wonderful because he's playing what he plays, which is a ranger. That's what he does. And for that matter, Pedro Pascal, great, incredible. Not him in the suit apparently, but even the voiceovers works very well. Wonderful. However, the Book of Boba Fett, also good, but then you start jumping down the branches and suddenly you get into the Acolyte, which has not been picked up for a 2nd season. It should have been. It ended great, but man, the build up to the end was shit. It was garbage. It's great that it ended that way. For all I know, they could have fucking pulled it out and been like, okay, this is where Grey Jedis are finally going to come in.
Apparently, the day after they said it wasn't getting picked up, they already stripped clear all the merch from the merch site on Disney.
I'm not surprised, dude. It's like the thing. I'm not back to the comic thing. Like, I'm not a Star Wars expert, but I do love it. It is, like you were saying, the trilogy. It is near and dear to my heart. I watched them so many times when I was a kid. It was like my go-to movie. If I was homesick from school, that's what I watched.
The funny thing about me, I didn't see Star Wars, any of them, until I was like 20 and living out in California. Like I never had interest in them. And once I saw them, they blew my mind.
Which is funny because depending upon the age, I had my stepsister. She's what is she? She's probably 15 years younger than me, maybe. The first time she saw Star Wars, she was like, "It's a puppet." I was like, "You're right. It is a puppet, and I understand why you'd feel that way. But I'm telling you, just stick with it. Promise you, it gets better."
It's
also back to the first three, The Phantom Menace, as you were saying, was an event. Like I remember when I went to go see it, and I remember seeing the scroll on screen. I was like, ah.
Yeah, I saw Revenge of the
watching
Sith.
it, I was like, oh. You know, like it wasn't bad, but it didn't feel right to me. But the thing is, I remember in the theater, the kids that were there were fucking hyped.
Yeah.
They were stoked about that shit. So my standpoint was like, no, they hit it. They did it right.
I was in a theater filled. I think there was about maybe 6 people that weren't in costume, and I was one of them. Yeah, I felt like the odd man out because it was like 400 people dressed up as every character under the sun you could think of. And it was a
ones that don't talk.
And it was a midnight screening because it was like the midnight before. It was supposed to open on the Friday, but this was like at midnight on Thursday night. So I mean, yeah, it was still Friday, but and I never. It was just because a bunch of friends said, "Hey, you want to come to this?" Like, you know, that's the good thing when you live 3 blocks from the theater. It's just like, you know, okay, but if it means going to another town, I couldn't care that much.
Yeah.
But no, I talking about the older things and them beating the life out of it. That's what I hope that doesn't happen with 13 Ghosts and everyone, because like I said, for the last 2 years they've been talking about doing a series based on the ghosts, and I think it has to be based, like I was saying before, it has to be based on those ghosts from the movie. Because that's what people have been wanting for 20-something years is to know more about those actual ghosts. If you're just going to create a story with 13 new ghosts, then just call it something else.
Yeah.
You know?
It bothers me a lot for no other reason than I know you're right. If it's done, somebody's going to suggest doing a reboot. It's a brand new person. Perhaps they're related to the original Criticos, and then so forth and so on down the line until it's something that it was not meant to be. And it's not... Yeah. Again, I'm not a purist. I don't care. As long as it's a good story, I'm generally behind it.
Yeah.
But you're 100% correct. If somebody picked it up, there would be 15 people that had nothing to do with the original story, didn't care about it, trying to suggest things, including an idea for the Twilight Zone that their dad had in 1952. Mm-hmm. It would turn into something it wasn't.
Because when you talk 13 Ghosts, nobody, and I mean nobody, ever is referring to the original. You know, most people haven't even seen the original. The original is so hokey.
Yeah.
I watched it after I actually watched it after your version. I went back. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see where it came from. I did the same thing with House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
I saw the version with Jeffrey Rush and went back and watched the Price version. Right. And they have their moments. There's a moment like you can look at them. Historically, I understand why this had the effect that it did.
Yeah.
But no, your version of 13 Ghosts is like when I mention it. If I talk about it to somebody, they know your version. It's immediately what they fucking refer to. And so many of them mention the DVD feature with the fucking stories behind the ghosts.
Yeah. And so the last 2 years, with all the people who have sent me emails about, you know, first it started off with a meme where people were just jokingly saying, "Dear Netflix, you know, here's a story idea." And then all of a sudden there's, the last I heard is there are some filmmakers who have contacted the people who own the stuff and are moving forward with something, but it's all still in pitches and, you know, meetings and treatments and all that stuff. But I just hope that if it is, it's based on that, it's based on the movie, because otherwise now it's just going to be some visual effects mess, and it'll be based on 13 other characters that nobody has any connection to. And then if that's the case, then just make a new story, make a new movie, and just call it something else.
Yeah.
If you're going to make a story about the ghosts, then it needs to be those ghosts from that movie. Yeah. It doesn't need to be the same actors, because you know, some of us don't. I don't even think we're all alive. A lot of us aren't even in the business anymore, and I'm 200 pounds lighter. So, you know, if you can come up with a reason why the great child lost 200 pounds, then sure, I'll put the underwear back on.
Easiest answer in the world. Ghosts lose mass over time as they begin to dissipate.
There you go.
Easiest answer in the world. You can write that in a second. You can do the same thing with any member in there. I mean, shit. You know, usually you're saying it would be a visual effects massacre, for lack of a better way to put it. It would just be everybody and their brother being like, okay, that's the green screen. Now let's put it in Photoshop, and suddenly it's something that the original 13 or not the original, but your version of the 13. How there? Okay, so the one scene in the movie in which all ghosts are there was when Criticos was finally solidifying everything.
Yeah.
How many people were on set? Was it actually a thing, or were y'all filmed individually and like pieced together?
When you see us on the Ocularis there, when we're all on the Black Zodiac Circle, we're all there and we're all spinning around on the thing for real. If you see all the ghosts, the only one who's not there is the boy, because it's a woman double. Because whenever the princess, the one with
the Shannon Elizabeth character, yeah.
Well, the one with all the
princess, naked and cut.
Yeah. Whenever she was on set, they had to have, and the boy happened to be in that scene, then they would replace. So when you see the bodies from a wide shot on the circle, it's an actress who's a photo double dressed as him. And then when they do the close-ups, they bring in the kid and they do the close-ups, and then they send him off again, back to go sit in his chair, because you can't have a completely naked woman standing in front of him.
That's literally the type of thing that you would never think of unless you were there. Like, unless you understood the way everything worked, I would never have thought about it.
Yeah. And like, for example, you're saying with Criticos, when you see us and he's there and he's got his, when he reveals that the neck injury was fake, then all the ghosts surround him and we swoop him up and we start bringing him towards and we throw him into the gears, and that's when he gets all chopped up and everything. F. Murray Abraham was laying on, it was basically like an upside down ham, like this. And it was a big green hand, and he laid on the thing, and it's connected to like a crane arm, like a jib arm, and there's a guy operating it. And so he's laying on that. We just surround him. We basically put our hands on him to make it look like we're grabbing him. And then as the thing is getting pulled, we just like continue holding him. And I remember that was the day when there's the glass walls, and I'm supposed to be helping carry F. Murray Abraham, but I can't there's too many ghosts and we're taking up too much space, and I can't get through the glass. So I'm only getting about halfway through, and then I'm just like keeping my hands in the air and pretending that I'm doing something. And I complained to the AD. I said, I can't get through the thing. And I'm supposed to be picking him up. And I just remember him saying something like, well, that sounds a bit like the arm bone's connected to the neck bone, and maybe just do what you do. And it was just one of those things where he just rattled off something like, I don't care about your little problem. Now,
in a roundabout way of saying that is a you problem. We are going to get this in the fucking can today. Go.
Yeah. Not that it has anything to do with that, but that AD didn't finish the film. Let's just say. There was another AD that was brought in, because at that point we were so far past we were past over budget and past, like, I think by the time we were on like day 25, we should have been on. When we were on day 25, we should have been on day 30 kind of thing. We were like 5 days behind because shooting was taking so long. And a lot of that has to do with actors not being prepared. A lot of that. And then what happens is then you have 12 ghosts sitting in the corner melting while actors are flubbing their lines, and then they're like, well, I'm sorry, guys, we're not going to get to you guys today. So all 12 of us back to the trailers to take all the makeup off, and we didn't do anything.
So once again, something you would not, or at least I wouldn't have thought about. Like, there are days where you literally show up to set, get in makeup, and sit there and wait for your shot, and wouldn't be able to take it. So they go back, take the makeup off, and do it again the next day.
Yeah, go home and start all the way. And then for me, the big reveal for me was on the first day. After we had done makeup tests and we had done all of the preliminary stuff on the first day of shooting, when it was the first day that we're going to do the whole kit and caboodle, at the end of the day, they said, you guys are going to be excited to know that we have a shower trailer. We brought in a shower trailer. It was a trailer that had about 5 or 6 shower stalls in a row. But this what always drives me nuts is when they hire you for your size,
And
but they don't take. Well, they hire you for your size, but then from that moment on, they never take your size into consideration. So the showers they got for us were, let's just say there was enough room in the shower for me or the water. It was it was one of those things where I could slide in with my arms pressed against my body, slide into the shower stall, and I was like, okay, now I can't lift my arm to turn the water on.
An RV shower is what you have. So that's an RV shower. That's awesome.
Basically, that's what they were. So I basically had to go back to the makeup trailer. They basically wiped me down with baby wipes and a couple wet dishcloths, basically, enough that I could then get on public transit. Because you think, well, you're a famous actor, you probably get driven home. No. Now I got to go stand on the corner and wait for the bus. And then if the bus doesn't come, then I got to take a cab home. And I'm in half great child makeup, And don't forget, I look like a poodle's ass because I got the big
the little tuft,
which was my hair. People think that was stuck on, but no, that was my hair. They shaved they got rid of the rest of the afro and just left that part and dyed it blonde. So then I'd have to go get it retouched every 2 days because my roots started showing.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, that's the part that I've lost since then.
It happens.
I'm telling you, they burned that part of my hair from all the bleach every 2 days. I swear that's why I'm bald.
I had years of fucking my hair up, and my hair actually balded in the shape of a mohawk. So just saying, there's something to it.
But it was with that film. It was a lot of sit around, hurry up and wait kind of thing, because as the monsters, as the ghosts, didn't really have any dialogue. So it was basically waiting until a specific corner of the set was lit. And then they put you in place and they go, when I yell action, step in the frame, just stand there, look at the camera.
Make the face.
And I think I mentioned before, the only direction they gave me as far as noise was to scream bloody murder, but don't open my mouth. So,
which worked, incidentally.
And it's creepy when you watch the movie. You're like, you can hear something. Is that a baby? You don't know what you're hearing.
Yeah.
But the other monsters got to break Matthew Lillard in half. He got to do the whole thing at the Juggernaut got to do the whole thing at the scrapyard. Got all that stuff. I got to sit in my cube and be fed puke by my mom. Everybody thought
I like to think of them as peas. It makes me happy.
Because like I said last time, everybody thinks it's baby food or peas or something, but no, it was just the puke being scooped off my chest and being refed to me.
Not to me. For me, it's always going to be.
So
I have moments.
even though I didn't do much in the film, it's like they gave me very memorable set pieces. So it's like when you see me in the cube with my mom on my lap, it's such a memorable image. And then when you see me standing at the end of the hallway with the axe and my mom standing next to me, that's such a That's such a memorable image.
All right, come on, scoot it back. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye, you little varmint.
Say bye-bye.
I didn't have much to do in 13 Ghosts, but what they did give me were memorable set pieces that people, just a quick shot of me standing at the end of the hall with the bloody axe and my mom standing next to me is such a memorable image that, I've just seen that shot tattooed so many times on people.
Yeah.
I mean, it stands out. But then again, like you were saying with Juggernaut at the beginning of the idea of the introduction being that's an intense introduction to a movie.
Yeah.
If for no other reason that we're spraying everything with blood. Why?
Yeah.
That's a fucking great scene.
Yeah.
Something else you said that actually has me wondering. You mentioned Matthew Lillard getting broken in half, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were on there waiting, how much time were you ever there waiting for principal actors to finish what they were doing?
Yeah, most days And this is where they got so far behind. It's like they needed another AD to come on to look at the schedule with different eyes and figure out. And the biggest thing they needed to figure out was that you don't need to have all the main cast and all the ghosts on set together all the time, because what would happen is, you can only do so many takes of an actor flubbing their lines, and eventually it just goes on and on and on and on. And so they might say on the schedule, okay, we have 3 scenes. The actors are going to come in, they're going to do their 3 scenes, and then we're going to do the ghost stuff. Okay, that's fine. And it's on the schedule, it says an hour for each scene. That's 3 hours. Well, when you're on to the 3rd hour on the first scene, and you still have those 2 scenes, and now it's lunch, and you still have the 12 guys, and not to mention the 20 or so makeup people and costume people that are associated to all the ghosts that are on the clock too. So you have like 30 people sitting in this big tented area in the corner of the lot, and now you're just waiting for them to finish whatever it is they're doing. A lot of shows, what they would do is they would have a second unit. It would be like the ghost unit, and they would have us off shooting all the ghost stuff separate from the main. Because I play a lot, in the past I played a lot of creature suit performer kind of stuff, where like Minor 49 or I'm playing a troll or I'm playing an ogre or something. A lot of that stuff gets shot outside of where the actors are, like on Scooby-Doo. A lot of the monster stuff, we did all the monster stuff, and then the actors would do the other stuff. And there was only the rare occasion where it was like a big wide shot, like at the end of Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, when we're all in the monster hive and they have to show that it's like the big grand finale of the movie. Then, of course, everybody is there. But those days where they don't have the other actors and it's just the monsters and stuff, those are the most grueling days, because you'll spend like 6 hours shooting what turns out to be like 3 seconds of film time, because it's all visual effects stuff. And it's like you're watching Scooby-Doo who's surfing around the room on black tar from the tar monster, and he's on a fire extinguisher, and he shot off the end, which is exploded. So now he's surfing around the room, but in reality, it's an AD in the corner with a little red light clicker. And so basically, So basically, I just did days and days of pretending to be a cat, and it's just Minor 49er watching the red light, and I'm reacting to it, and then they cut that all together. So it's those are the things. The days just go on and on, where they spend 2 hours lighting the shot, and then it's like 3 seconds of just looking back and forth. And then you go back and you wait for another 2 hours while they get another set. And because especially when they're doing visual effects stuff, all the lighting has to be so precise and everything has to be almost overlit, because when you're shooting plate shots, for example, for visual effects, they almost always shoot the plate shot at a higher exposure. Like for example,
as little shadow as possible.
Yeah. So for example, on an Outer Limits episode I did back then, most TV was shot on 16 millimeter. Before digital, TV was shot on 16 millimeter, and it just wouldn't get blown up, because they would just show the what they shot. But so when there's a shot in the episode where the character comes in and he's got a piece from a alien spaceship. So when he opens the briefcase, the thing floats out and it's like floating in front of us. Well, they shot the plate of us all standing there going, ooh, as we're looking at this thing that's supposed to be there. They shot that in 35 millimeter so that when they put the visual effects on top, they could then take it down a level, because it's been aged by putting something else on top of the 35 millimeter image. Now you can take it down to 16 millimeter. So you have to start with it's like when you're doing Photoshop, you start with as big a picture as you can, and then you break it down. So it's the same kind of thing on like Scooby-Doo and stuff. I remember they had this these Panavision cameras, especially when they were shooting with film, you're talking like, $300,000-$400,000 cameras, these big cameras that are like, they seem like they're 5 feet long because they got all these lenses and stuff on them, the big Panavision camera. And now I have to take my axe and I have to swing my minor 49er axe and I have to come down right in front of the lens. And you talk about pressure. You're swinging a real pickaxe at a $400,000 camera. You better. And so instead of hitting the camera, I stuck the pick into the studio floor.
So, that's what the studio floor is there for, though. That is its purpose. You did exactly what was meant for that studio floor. Well, that and holding up sets.
It looks good in the film.
It does look good in the film, actually. That's one of my kids' favorite movies. The first two Scooby-Doos, or at least the live-action Scooby-Doos, favorite movies. The second one in particular, I am not sure which monster it is. My kid likes monsters.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's my influence on her. It could be. I have no clue. She likes monsters. I don't know which one it is, but she has to watch it all the time.
The cotton candy glob and, the tar monster.
We had a discussion once. I say discussion, as much of a discussion as you could have with a 4-year-old, in which basically it was the question is, are monsters bad? They are not bad. They're just hungry.
Yeah.
What they eat, not our problem, but they're just not bad.
And in the movie, we weren't even monsters. We were imagination. We were like,
exactly. They were versions of somebody else's opinion of what a monster is.
Because we were just the reimagining of the costumes, because it was the costumes.
They were good though. The 49, like Minor 49er in particular, I thought was a really good adaptation. Like I remember when I was a kid. I mean, literally one of the first times I remember watching Scooby-Doo, like when I suddenly flashed to self-awareness as a small child, was in daycare watching Scooby-Doo. And it was at the intro where they show everybody. They show the robot from the amusement park.
Yeah, yeah.
They show Minor 49er and everything else. So when they did the previews for the second Scooby-Doo and they show Minor 49er, I was like, yeah, that's probably right. That seems right. And then, they showed the other person. I was like, shit, that's right too.
I remember the audition. I remember going to the studio. It was in North Vancouver, so I had to take the bus and the ferry and go over there and go in, do the audition. And the director, Raja Gosnell, was there, and it was like hiding behind the wall and coming out around there was like a wall they had put up for the audition. It was like coming around the wall and pretending to encounter Scooby and Shaggy and doing the voices and stuff. And, you can either feel weird because you're dressed in your civvies, or you're just the guy in his T-shirt in a room making all these weird noises. And at that point, the character really wasn't developed as far as, there was no voice. There was no nothing. It was just like, we'll figure that out because there's nothing to base it on. In the cartoons, Minor 49er, I don't think ever speaks. It's just a look with the big...
Hear the I feel like there's a grunt, maybe just like all the Scooby-Doo monsters, like you may hear a grunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like, coming up with something. And so I did I made him stand. So he was almost like bow-legged. And, that's fine in the audition. You don't think about months of running around in the bow-legged, wearing all of this pounds of stuff on you. So I was pretty beat up at the end of that. But I remember walking back to the bus stop and just standing at the bus stop, and I was so giddy, grown man standing at the bus stop, just giddy because I knew I blew the audition away. And just from walking from the studio to the bus stop, standing there and thinking about the Scooby-Doo franchise and what Scooby-Doo is and how much it meant to you growing up and watching this show your whole life. And it's like, and then knowing that now I still didn't know but I was so certain. I just remember getting home and telling my wife, I nailed it. I am going to be in this movie. And then when I got the call, I was thrilled to be part of that universe and then to get to do another Scooby-Doo film, so I've been in 2 Scooby-Doo films. So I don't think many other people have had that chance, especially with 2 different Scooby-Doos. Because it was Frank Welker did Frank Welker did the Scooby-Doo voice in the second film I did. So it's a different voice than Neil Fanning.
We're in a moment. We're going to take a break, but there's something I just wanted to say randomly. It's a random story you reminded me of.
Yeah.
So you were talking about like choosing to be bow-legged in the audition and realizing that you were going to have to do that indefinitely.
Yeah.
Thomas Lennon.
Yeah.
Reno 911.
Yeah.
Deputy Dangle. The only reason, this is a random story, but the only reason he chose to wear those little shorts, right, was because he thought that it was going to fail miserably and he'd never have to do it again. Instead, he got stuck wearing that shit through 2 movies in fucking 9 years worth of a fucking TV show. That is, to me, one of the funniest self-imposed fucking miseries on the planet.
Yeah.
He said that, too. He said it in interviews. He was like, it's the worst decision I ever made. This is the guy that was on The Stake. That was the worst decision he ever made.
He was also on the Odd Couple remake with Matthew Perry.
He's fucking great, though. Thomas Lennon's he is funny in everything he fucking.
And didn't he write the Night at the Museum movies?
Was that Tom? Did he?
Yeah, I think so.
Shit, now I gotta look that up. I have to look. I guess we can do that on break. So again, guys, we will be back in just a moment. Greg, do your thing.
Introducing Doritos Pizza Cravers with great Pizza Hut flavor. Do we get cable?
Children had a party.
It's party time.
It was Orville's coming out party. Oh, they had so much fun. They laughed and laughed and laughed. That is, until Orville's friends dropped in. Children shouldn't play with dead things.
And we're back in the middle of a conversation because that is what happens here.
Every damn time.
They've taken the show and it's gotten smaller and the biz has gotten bigger and it's almost replaced the show. It's just business now. Everything's business. And if museums, were, imagine all the art, if how people, most artists, their stuff doesn't become popular until they're dead. So all of the art of history would have been a tax write-off if it was about business. We wouldn't have any of the artwork that we look back at as the classics because most of that stuff never made a mark when the artists were still alive. And if it was being run by a studio, they would have just said, scrap it. Nobody's interested. And we wouldn't have anything to look back at. It goes in hand in hand with my producing partner always said, like when we send our films to festivals, first of all, people forget, you gotta pay anywhere from $50 to $300 on the entry fee just to have the privilege of sending your movie to these festivals. And that alone has the business of movies has taken over that part with things like Film Freeway and websites where they've realized there's money to be made in just allowing people to submit their films to these festivals. It's like money has to be sucked out of every inch of this business. And like when you go on Film Freeway, for example, there's so many festivals in there that, first of all, don't exist, that people are so hungry to get laurels from something that they can stick on their poster and go, look at all the film festivals we appeared at. There's so many things on Film Freeway. I call them laurel farms, where you send us $35 and we'll send you a laurel saying that you were in our festival, and boom, you can put it on your poster. And, Film Freeway will say none of this is real. All the festivals on our site are real festivals and they all exist. And they say, well, okay, then why are most of these festivals online festivals? and where the film can be seen on some guy's website for 3 days, but in the meantime, how much money did he make accepting entry fees? That's a whole other thing. And but what I was getting at is what my producing partner would always say is, so many of these festivals, they'll say, we don't have time to watch all the movies. We can only watch the first 5-6 minutes of your movie, and if it doesn't catch us, we move on to the next one. And we always think, well, first of all, that's such a disservice to the art of the filmmaker. But just think of the great artists. Like, just think of the Mona Lisa. That's like someone saying, okay, I'm going to look at the bottom square inch of this picture, and what I'm looking at in the bottom square inch of this picture really better set me off, because if it doesn't, I'm not looking at the rest of your painting. As stupid as that sounds, that's exactly what they're doing when film festivals, and that's comes down to taking the art out of it. It's just all business. Yeah. And, it's about money in, money out. And, there a lot of them will, like I was saying earlier with the Batgirl thing, you're dealing with the work of artisans, be it all of the crew and all of the actors and everything. So,
okay, sorry, 1 second, I apologize.
Yeah. So 200 people's livelihoods don't matter. What matters is that we have a nice black line, and
walk away.
We're not in the red. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter about 200 people's livelihoods and 200 people's artwork and all the creativity. It's not about that anymore. And that's why I like, I've now produced 3 features and a short film, and we've made no money because, well, only one of them has been released, and the other 2 are still, in limbo land, where we don't have distribution. We could just drop it on YouTube, and then you get to the point where now it's like the one film we finished it in 2017. Well, this is 2024. At what point are we just going to stick it on YouTube so people can see it? It's like even our newer movie was finished in 2021, and we haven't done anything with that. And that's the frustrating thing, is because, like, for example, with the film festivals, when we started making movies in the 90s, you'd get like 200-300 entries at a festival. Now festivals, I remember we sent a film to the Atlanta Film Festival, and they said that they got like 6,000 entries, and they're picking 125 films out of 6,000.
So if you look at the percentages, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. And because they say, well, it's easier to make a movie now, which is true. The problem is it's easier for that many more people to submit their films. In the old days, you had to have the money to shoot on film. You had to have the money to put a crew together. Even if everyone was working for free, you had to get the equipment. You had to get the films.
Have the money for a 36 gig fucking like little clip thing, whatever they're called.
The memory card.
Like a little SD card. That's what you need.
Yeah.
You need the money for an SD card.
And you don't even need 2. You can come home, dump it,
and then use
it again the next day, which we did. Our last film,
marketing. Okay, so you have for me, for example, there are all kinds of, like, when I'm running through Facebook or TikTok or anywhere else where I'm looking at clips, and you see a little like 30-second clip of a movie that you've never seen before. It's almost like the new version of advertising, because it's enough to spark interest.
Yeah.
Right. It's enough to draw your attention. It's enough to make you look the movie up. You look the movie up, then you have somebody running eventually to a website that funds the movie. Like, there's an entire thing that didn't used to exist now, and it is the internet.
Yeah. I just remember how exciting I was when they started having the Apple trailers, when Apple had this site where you could watch them in QuickTime, and they were crystal clear. And I remember
too. No, that was one of my first intros to internet fucking these upcoming movies.
Yeah.
And I would watch the shit. I'd be like, I live in the future.
And I remember having to wait 6 hours for a trailer to download so I could watch it.
Good Christ. Okay, so The first time I saw Underworld, not the second one, I want to say, I got it off of 360 Share, which later became LimeWire.
Okay.
So 360 Share, or no, sorry, LimeWire turned into 360 Share. So I got it off of 360 Share. It was randomly, it just said Underworld dot something dot something. It was on somebody else's computer because it was shareware shit.
Yeah.
I watched the movie and I was like, holy shit, I've arrived. This is my moment. This is it. I never have to pay to see a movie again. And then the next movie I downloaded was some really, really horrific porn. Not because I wanted it. I was looking for a song. It wasn't a song. It was terrifying. So I stopped using LimeWire.
Yeah. I remember the Napster, when Napster first came up. I was like, you mean I could, it's like nowadays with Spotify and with all these Apple Music and what have you, the concept of just typing in anything and it coming up.
Yeah,
it's so blasé now. But I remember with Napster, it was like, you mean I could just come up with an obscure artist I remember from when I was a kid? I can type it in, and if somebody has that,
it's there.
It's there, and I can download it. That blew my mind. It's like, wow, this is like the largest record store in the world, and now. That's, to me, that's the best thing with Spotify is I'll go to somebody like you were saying about looking at the back of the album, seeing what record label, who's on that record. Like, that's the thing I love about Spotify is you're listening to a song
right there,
and it says fans also like, and you click that and it takes you to people you've never heard of. And you can go down such a rabbit hole of artists you've never heard of.
There was so Pandora, right? I've had the same Pandora, I guess, since I first discovered Pandora, had an account.
Okay.
They expressed paying. I was like, yes, I will pay for you. And I have had the same account, right? So, I mean, we're going on, 17 years. 17 years worth of Pandora. That's what I've had. I have one of the most in-depth and treat-out versions of, there is so much shit I get to listen to that I would never hear without that. It's a wonderful feature. It's an amazing thing.
That's why I like putting my Spotify playlists on like enhanced shuffle, because it'll just throw songs in
stuff you might like. These are other bands that people have also enjoyed. It's an incredible
something that does match up in the playlist that you do like, and you're like, how could I not remember that song? So
iTunes used to have a feature like that with movies.
Yeah.
Like, really? If you picked up a movie and you enjoyed it, it would it still does it, but it's not the same. At one point in time, it would suggest like these niche movies, shit you never discover otherwise. They'd be like, you might also like this. Like there's a Stephen Dorff film called Botched. Not enough people have seen that movie. It's a great fucking movie. It's a horror movie, it's a slasher movie, and it's a comedy movie. And it is hilarious and gross. It is everything it is meant to be. And nobody has ever fucking seen it. I discovered it because iTunes was like, hey, you like The Cabin, I bet you'll enjoy this.
Well, the thing is, like, what Spotify has shown me with music and what things like Tubi and stuff have shown me with movies is there is so much stuff in this world that we've never even heard of. Like with movies, you can make a list of every movie you've ever heard of, and you haven't even hit the top of the pile of these things. It just blows me. And then we're in other countries. Every country has its own film industry. I mean, you think of any country and they've got films you've never heard of. Then it's amazing. We always, like my wife and I, one of our things that we do when we watch movies is at the end of the credits, we always try to be the first one to find the MPA number, like 53,456. And you always shake your head and go, 53,000. And then you realize, well, that's just the films that they've certified. Never mind all the indie films or all the films that didn't have an MPA rating.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how many films are out there.
This is one of the, before we started, I told you there was a couple of questions I was going to this is actually a weird segue. It's not actually an organic one, but it is something I was very curious about. If you were able to choose a role for yourself from the beginning of cinematic history to now, something that you felt you would have been right for, anything, What's the thing you feel like he would have been really good at?
A role that hasn't truly. It's not a role that existed, but it's a role that should have existed, and that is someone needs to properly tell the Fatty Arbuckle story. That I'm getting to the point where I'm too old to tell that story properly, but I would still be interested in, like maybe, directing it or writing a script, because, he was but here's a story of someone who was his entire career was basically ripped apart and ripped away from rumor. And,
what's it a rumor? Like, that's the thing. I know the rumor you're referring to. So was it ever solidified one way or the other? Like, was it just an accusation, or was it something that happened, or was it something they couldn't prove?
I think that somebody died at a party that he had, and it was a sex party, and I think it was blamed on, I don't even know the details. I just know that I've had producers, I've had directors casually say to me, have you ever thought of doing the Fatty Arbuckles? I've had actually people tell me this, and then that's what got me looking it up. Another one is on Capote. I played Lowell Lee Andrews, and for the life of me, I do not think a film has ever done about his story, but this is a 22-year-old kid who killed his entire family because he wanted to take the insurance money and go to Chicago and become a gangster. It's like you're dealing with the minds of children who have no touch of the real world. They live in their heads. They have such an imagination to think that he could just kill his family, and I'm the last surviving member, so I'll get the insurance money, and then I can go to Chicago and be a gangster. It's like, who thinks of this stuff? And the fact that he went into town to get his typewriter fixed so that he'd have an alibi because he was in town and then he came home and sat after he killed his parents and his siblings, he sat on the porch with his dog and waited for the police to come because he called them, So, and I played that character in Capote because he was on death row with the two guys, the In Cold Blood murders. The two guys that the movie Capote's about, he was on death row with them. He's the guy that went to get hanged just before them. He was their oh shit moment when they see him going off to the corner to get hanged, they know, okay, we're next. This is not playtime anymore. But he's always been a footnote in the Capote story of these two other guys, Dick Hickok and Perry Smith. He's always been a footnote because he was on death row across the hall from them. But I can't for the life of me think of a story that anyone has ever told that story. So
it would be interesting. I mean, there is a lot to that.
Yeah. And, in this world of true crime and in this world of podcasts and stuff, I don't even know if people have done that story, but those are two things that have always been with me because he was a big guy. It's funny how you get attached to things even when you have nothing to do with it, just because of your size. And, that's like with the Fatty Arbuckle thing. When you have producers saying, have you ever looked into that story? Part of you is like, yeah, it's an interesting story.
And he was a big dude too. He was like 6'2".
Yeah.
He was a big guy at the time.
But at the same time, you think, okay, but I'm more than a waist size. I'm also just a human being, and I'd like to be able to play, any kind of character. It's funny that I say that, but at the same time, the first thing that comes to mind are two fat guys, and I'd like to play those guys.
Yeah, that's like the character actor thing. I mean, there is. It was actually my dad that pointed that out to me. Oddly enough, I mean, I was younger, but he was pointing it out that, like, when you look at the history of Hollywood, or at least as far as the average consumer knows it, there are certain actors you see over and over and over again. And the reason you see them is because they fit a specific quality.
Yeah.
Those guys always have work. It's always there because that character is needed. It's important to make you suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
It's somebody it's somebody you recognize.
Yeah.
So the idea of a character actor, and like it can be size, it can be physical shape, it can be anything, but there is something to it. It's a niche, which I've used that term a lot tonight, but I guess there's a reason.
Yeah.
There's a very specific reason that it is important. It's an important fucking role.
Before, like we were talking earlier with things like IMDb, before you had an opportunity to know who these people were, all you knew is that they were familiar. And it was that familiarity that made them comfortable to you. So when you saw them in the background of your movies slotted in, you felt comfortable, like this, I know these people, even though they're all actors.
Right. Harry Dean's the guy, I couldn't remember his name. It's Harry Dean Stanton, right?
Yeah.
That guy literally had a prolific Hollywood career. Probably one of his bigger roles was in Pretty in Pink, one of his more spoken roles where he had more screen time. But just him being himself, he was in so many fucking movies. He was a character. He was like the character actor's character actor.
I mean, right up until the second he died, he was making movies.
That dude is somebody, if you saw him in a movie, first off, it elevated the movie.
Yeah.
And once again, as a character actor, just him being in it raised it.
Yeah, when most people, they'll go like, if Tom Cruise is in this or if Tom Hanks is in it, like people direct themselves to the star, and they look at star vehicles and who's in this film. I like that actor, I'm going to go see it. But I've always been the person, even before I was an actor, I was always the person who was attracted to the character actors. Is like, different character actors, if they're in this movie, like Pruitt Taylor Vince is an actor who, the guy with the wiggly eye, his eyeballs have,
I fucking love him.
It's like, even before I knew his name, he was the guy with the wiggly eyes, and I knew if he was in a film, I was going to like this film. It's certain actors.
I know him from the John Cusack movie. I know him from other movies, but the John Cusack movie is where he first really showed up to me with the eyes.
Yeah.
That was the moment where I was like, shit, this guy.
Or W. Earl Brown. He was the one who played the mentally handicapped guy in There's Something About Mary. Coconut. W. Earl Brown.
By the way, literally, I just watched a clip of him the other day. I didn't realize, he did that very well.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is, I did not realize he was okay.
Yeah.
He was not mentally handicapped.
Yeah, it wasn't until I saw him. He did the biopic of Meatloaf. He played Meatloaf. I think it was called The Hell and Back or something.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And was that what it was called? Yeah. And he played him in that. And I remember thinking, that guy looks familiar. And because I thought it was an actually mentally handicapped guy in that
because
movie.
He was that good at it. It was it's an amazing thing. It wasn't what's funny is you would normally, this is a weird off topic thing, but it's not something if you see Leonardo DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, right? Arnie playing the mentally handicapped kid. The first, if that was your first introduction to him, you would think that kid, they got a guy who could take direction, but was definitely handicapped.
Yeah.
Same thing with him. It was solid. It wasn't overdone. It wasn't a caricature of, it wasn't to make fun of, it just was. Which in Something About Mary, the fact that was done in a movie that was blatantly a joke all the way through. Every scene is hilarious. But he kind of played it straight.
He was never the joke. He was never the joke. He was never the punchline.
No, which is, what's funny is it goes back to Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it really does. It's a horrible fucking statement, but that's the reason that movie fucking works.
And I know that because that is a good majority of my resume. And I remember when I auditioned for Smokin' Aces 2, my character was, I basically, I did what he says in that movie. I did do that. In my first audition, I went a little too far. And in the breakdown of the script, it says he has a helmet. He's wearing a helmet that he made himself. So I latched onto that. Okay. So I went to the Salvation Army thrift store, and I bought myself a child-sized Taekwondo helmet, and I squeezed that over my head, and then I found like this brown strainer, like this colander, and I put the colander over top of the Taekwondo helmet, and then I got some those zap strap things and tightened it onto the thing. And
Hold
then
on, wait, there's one thing I should clarify. Anybody that runs across this video, Mr. Harth is 6'4". He's a big dude.
So
it's the child's Taekwondo helmet.
Yes.
I've not seen the movie. That's all you need to know. He's a very big guy.
With a colander tied to the top of this Taekwondo helmet. And so now and then I took a scarf as a tie and tied it under my chin. And then I put a piece of duct tape on the front of the colander and wrote BB for baby boy, because I'm baby boy Tremor. And then I had a shirt that had like the chili and basically remnants of my last 6 meals on it, kind of thing. And that's how I showed up at the audition, going for this role. And I remember in the audition, first of all, just imagine the actors in the waiting room sitting there getting ready to read for this audition. And this guy, my size, the size of the doorway, comes in wearing a child-sized Taekwondo helmet with a colander and a bow underneath me. I come walking in the room with my eyes. I have that 40-yard stare of there's nobody home. And I just remember going into the audition, and the director and the producer, and they're like looking at me like I can't be for real. This guy cannot be for real. About halfway through the audition, I remember PJ, the director, going, "Okay, I'm liking this, but you're going to have to take the helmet off. It's too distracting. I can't get past the helmet." But I just it's like when you just want them to know you're ready to play, you're willing to go as far as you need to go. And that's the thing that I've lost with the self-tapes. It's like, I don't have that courage of doing that on a self-tape. There's no fun in it. It just feels like I'm playing Mr. Dress Up at home, rather than going somewhere and making a presentation when I walk in the room. But that was a case of what you were saying about Tropic Thunder. Was I had to pull it back, because when I went back for the next audition, they wanted him to be more evil, less goofy, and so then I shaved my head, but I kept the bang, and I cut the bang down so the bang came here, and the rest was shaved. So I had like a Hitler haircut, and I cut my mustache so it was like this, because I was emphasizing that he's. So I went and I made a tattoo. I got two big SS's on my chest, and I wore a white wife beater T-shirt. And so when I came in the room, there was no part of me that was that baby boy from the last audition. This is the same actor, but a completely different character. But it was basically that saying from Tropic Thunder. I went full, and I had to pull it back.
Craig and I have talked to a bunch of different bands in the time that we've been doing this. And I promise you this goes back to what you were saying. A lot of them have changed the way in which they record. We're now like, they don't even meet each other for years. Yeah. They record, they send parts to each other, and then somebody mixes it down and produces it. I mean, there are bands we've talked to that have literally, they've gotten right to the point of breaking through doing that. It's a new world. You are stuck in a position where you didn't start that way, but that's what it is now.
Yeah.
Like you're on the cusp of being somebody who has to audition on a green screen.
Yeah.
Basically, the idea of like, I can be what you want me to be from my house.
Yeah.
You'll never have to see me in person. It's a weird sort of setup.
Yeah, because the biggest thing that's weird is, there's no differentiation between the three of us. We're just three heads in a square box. And, one of us could be 5'5", one of us could be 6'5". You wouldn't know. We're just three heads. And, it's trying to take all of that uniqueness, all of that originality, and somehow make it squeeze it into your head and then make it all come out of your mouth. It's because all of that other stuff is not there anymore. And that's the hardest part. I loved going into the room. I mean, that was part of the performance of being an actor. I didn't have to think about filming. I didn't have to think about sound. I didn't have to think about editing the thing together. I didn't have to think about the deadlines of getting the thing produced and sent out. It was about learning the lines, going to the room, walking in the room. And the second I walked out of that room, it was out of my life. It wasn't something that I had to sit in front of a computer and go through 3 hours of footage to find the perfect take and then edit it together, only to hope that maybe they watched it. Because at least when you go in the room and the director and the casting director are sitting there, at least you know for the time that you were in that room, you had their attention. Now, that's not to say I haven't went into auditions where you walk in and they're on their phone, literally on their phone, and they're like, no, go ahead. And you're like, I can wait. No, it's okay. Or, where they're serving them. They have like a little buffet set up because it's their lunch hour.
Showed up on their lunch break.
Yeah, so they're getting up and going over and serving themselves something to eat while you're doing the audition. I've had those auditions. I've had the auditions where the producers and the casting directors stand up and applaud, and then you never hear back from them.
Well, I would feel like if something like that happened, my assumption is that somebody had already made a choice by then. Like you were there after the decision had been made.
And sadly, being the term local hire, because I'm in an offshoot city, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, where mostly American productions come to shoot. So when they come here,
film for anybody watching this, by the way, Vancouver can film for anything, any city.
We have within driving distance, we have every ecosystem from rainforest to desert to tundra to mountains to rivers to everything. So within a day, especially for TV series like the X-Files, the one reason why they loved shooting here, they could be anywhere in the world and shoot, and that crew, especially in the early 90s, they learned how to shoot in rain. Because it rains a lot, especially when you're shooting at nights and stuff. That's why X-Files. If you look at the last 6, 7, and 8, like when X-Files moved to LA in about the 6th season, and then the last 3 seasons they shot in LA. When you watch it, there's just a different feel to those last few seasons.
There is,
because the sky is different. Even the show Lucifer, the first 2 seasons were shot in Vancouver. The last 3 seasons were shot in LA. So even things like the sky, the light, the way the sun looks in the sky, all that stuff comes across different because we're so far north. That's why so many shows like the science fiction show, 3/4 of what's on the CW is shot in Vancouver. And so a lot of these shows, like all of the, the Flash and the Superman, Lois, all the Smallville, all those shows, they have the same feel because they all live in the same universe, Vancouver, and they have the same sky, and they have this. When you're shooting in the woods, it all feels the same.
You just spurred on another question, a very specific one, by the way.
Okay,
something I wouldn't have thought to ask, except you mentioned Vancouver and you being a Canadian. I promise you, there's a connection. What role did you end up landing that you were surprised at?
Dreamcatcher. And it's been enough years, I can tell you the reason why. Dreamcatcher was one of those films where I knew it was based on a book by Stephen King. I knew that William Goldman, one of the most famous screenwriters, was writing the script with Lawrence Kasdan, who was one of the most famous directors. I mean, hell, he wrote, Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi or one of those. And he's been nominated for Oscars,
I gotta say, by the way, love the movie, love the book.
Yeah. And so knowing the cachet that came with Dreamcatcher, knowing all the people involved, I was in my head, and I had the initial audition, and the initial audition went okay, but then I got a call back. I was told that Lawrence Kasdan was coming up to town to the studio, and that it's down to me and another guy. That's all I knew. So I get to the studio, and as the starving actor, I'm basically I've gathered my pop bottles and got enough change to take the transit to the studio to go in for my audition. So I'm sitting there on the chair in the couch in the waiting room of the studio to go in for my audition, which I've been told is between me and another guy. So I'm sitting there and I'm going over my lines, and this is what I mean when I say it's been enough years. I can tell this. I was at a friend's house, and he had said, "You seem very nervous." I said, "Yeah, I got this call back today," and he says, "Here, you need to relax." So he gave me a joint. And so I smoked an entire joint before going to the studio for my callback. So now cut to me sitting in the studio. I'm on the couch in the waiting room in the production office, and I'm looking at my script, and I see a production vehicle pull up outside. It's one of the, like an Escalade, like, one of the Teamster cars pulls up, and I see the Teamster get out. He walks around, opens the door, he gets out some luggage, and he comes in, and then there's a big heavy guy getting out of the passenger side. And it turns out this is the other actor that I'm reading against. He is from Toronto. He has flown in for the callback. They have picked him up at the airport, brought him straight to the studio. So they're bringing him in with his luggage and everything. And now he's meeting the production coordinator, and she's saying, "Oh, I'm so glad you could come. And we're glad we could pick you up at the airport. And thank you for allowing us to bring you here straight. Would you like something from craft services? I can go into the studio and get you something." And now he's sitting on the couch next to me. I'm reading against him for the same part, but they're running around. They're offering him drinks. They're offering him something to eat. And they're counting out his per diem because he's on the clock, because they flew him out here for the callback, where I had to cash in my pop bottles to get enough bus fare to get here. And so on top of all that, I've smoked a joint. So all of the nervousness has been replaced by paranoia. So now there's no way I am even close to what they want for this, because apparently they're paying him, they're taking, and then after they finish his audition, they're going to drive him to the big Sutton Place hotel downtown, and they're going to put him up overnight before he flies back to Toronto the next day. So I'm clearly not the guy they want. It's where my brain is at. And just as I'm watching all this go down in front of me, I hear, "Ernst, you ready?" And it's the casting director. He's come out of the room behind me and has asked me to come. So I get up off the couch, I walk around, and I go in. And all I know is, okay, try and push this big guy out of your head. It's not about him, it's about you. You're going to get to go into a room. You're going to get to meet the famous director, Lawrence Kasdan, and you're going to do your audition, and it's going to be good. And I said, okay. And in goes paranoid Ernst. And he walks in, and the casting director says, "Ernst, this is Larry Ernst." And as I'm walking over to my chair to sit down, in my head, I'm going, "Oh, God, well, they clearly don't want me. I don't even get to meet Lawrence Kasdan. Jesus, just some flunky named Larry. Who the hell's Larry? Oh, okay, I get to meet Larry." So I sit down, and now I'm completely thrown from meeting the guy out in the hall. And now I'm laying there, and my scene in Dreamcatcher, the audition was the same scene that's in the movie. It was me laying on the couch at my therapist's office and describing to him, telling him my story of my favorite burger and all this stuff. And so I'm super nervous, and my hands are all over the place, and I'm just gesticulating and moving and just basically hamming it up way too big. And they go, "Thanks for coming." And I leave, and out I go, and off I go, and I was like kicking myself, and I'm about halfway across the studio parking lot, and my brain goes, "Lawrence, Larry, Lawrence, oh man, that was Lawrence Kasdan. Larry's his nickname. What the hell was I thinking? because I was so in my head and I was so freaking paranoid, and I've smoked this joint, and this guy gets brought in, and then I'm clearly not the right. So the next day, my agent calls me and she says, well, I just heard from the casting director. As you know, Stuart is not the type of guy to call with feedback, but he wanted to let you know that unfortunately, Larry could only go off what he saw in the room, and what he saw in the room was he goes, what he saw in the room is what I will refer to as circus Ernst. And that means he was juggling eyeballs and appendages. And that is not what they wanted for the role. So I thought, well, I just pissed that movie away. Way to go, Lawrence Larry. Thanks for seeing me. Oh, well, I'm not going to get to do Dreamcatcher. That is just not going to happen. And 2 weeks later, maybe a week later, I get a call from my agent. She says, okay, I just got off the phone with the casting director. They still haven't found the guy for the role, which made me realize, oh, well, then the guy that flew in from Toronto must have sucked too. So good for him. So they go, the casting director still thinks that you're the guy for this role. So he wants you to come into his office and he's going to workshop the scene with you. And you basically, the casting, this has never happened to me up until that point, and it hasn't happened to me since then, where the casting director knows I'm so right for the role that he wants me to come in and we're going to workshop the scene. I spent like 45 minutes in his office rehearsing the scene. And basically, because I was so in my head and I needed to relax, and he knew this, but he knew that it's like I didn't know the language to get that in my head. So he needed to talk to me in my language, which was dumb it down, apparently. So he had 3 sticky notes in his hand, and he walks over to the wall and he says, okay, for the first third of your monologue, I want you to look at this sticky note. And then he moves it over here and he puts another one on the wall over here, and then he puts another one on the wall over there. And he says, at this point, move your eyes to this, and then move your eyes to this. He basically wanted me to not move at all. Don't even move your hands. Just lay there and let your eyeballs tell the story. Look here, look there, look here, because you're on a couch. There's no need. You're a foot away from your doctor. He's sitting right here, Thomas Jane, who eventually was the doctor. So we did that, and then he filmed it. After the 45 minutes, he filmed it, sent it off to LA. The next morning, I get a call that says, they got your tape, they watched it, you're back in the running. Oh my God, I'm back in the, and then I get a call that says, Lawrence, next time he comes back up to Vancouver, he may want to see you again for another callback. So just know that's where it's at. I said, okay. The next morning, I get another phone call. You're booked. So talk about a roller coaster ride of auditioning for this thing, getting the call back, so nervous about the callback that I smoke a joint, which ends up making me super paranoid, going in the room, completely shitting my pants, losing the whole thing. But the casting director knew that I was the guy for the part and was going to workshop this with me and make this happen, and sent it off. And then I got booked. And to this day, I still shake my head that I open the film. The first thing you hear for the first 5 minutes is me. Just blows my mind. And the fact that it's Lawrence Kasdan and Stephen King and William Goldman and me, and I'm sharing the scene with Thomas Jane, the whole thing came to me at a point where it's like, I didn't get this. I can't believe I'm going to get this. I got this. And yeah, even to this day, lots of times, Smoking Aces too, I didn't think I'd get, because I had 3 auditions, a callback. I must have had 4 meetings. And then I heard that it went back to Universal. They didn't like me. And then they still didn't like me. But all along, the woman who was the executive from Universal, it turned out she was championing for me, and she kept putting my name in the thing. And she told me on set, when I finally had a moment, once I was doing the film, she said, the one thing that you had that nobody else had was humanity. You weren't a caricature. You were an actual character that we cared about. And it was so easy, like you were saying with Tropic Thunder. It's so easy to become a caricature, to go so far over the top that you're just play acting. And I try to bring it into his eyes where there's, he may not be saying a lot, but there's stuff happening. And she says, you were a villain, you were a neo-Nazi, but we cared for you.
I would say, incidentally, by the way, so Smoking Aces 1 and 2, I own both of them. I purchased them the second they became available on digital anything.
Yeah.
The second that was possible. I think it was iTunes that I got them through. Which, by the way, goes back to something we said, that this is a part 2, incidentally. Once again, anybody comes across this is a part 2. Watch the first part. So, legitimately, there, for me at least, you have mentioned it, and it's a true statement. I went back and looked at it later. When you said people have grown up with you and not realized it.
Yeah.
It's 100% true. But you can go through IMDb to figure it out. You can. Or you can, if you're a cinephile or if you have any type of love for movies, TV shows, whatever, you can go through your own library. You're going to find you all the fuck over it.
Yeah.
Like, it's everywhere. It really is absurd.
Because there's horror films, but then there's also children's film, Disney films. There's also there's dramas, there's comedies. It's all over the map.
And I want to chalk it up to the character actor thing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is. I just know that there is a lot of you in the shit that I own. Good amount of you just hanging out. It's like it's a weird thing for me to be able to talk to you about it, just because it's not. I know, I guess, a little bit about the industry where it comes down to talking to people that were involved in it. It's not from my understanding; it's from somebody else's. For me, being able to talk to you has been a wonderful experience. There are still questions that I would love to be able to ask you now, except for we've already hit the hour and a half time limit. It has been wonderful. It has been wonderful talking to you.
Yeah.
There's so much I would like to ask you that
so much I learned too. Like,
yeah, there's even going down to the fact that, all right, so when you brought up the idea that it is a different world now. It's not like when you send in an audition now, it's not the same as one-to-one. We've covered this already in this conversation, but still it's the big standout for me. It is weird to me that the movies we love, the stuff we really enjoy, they've changed. They've changed drastically because the way in which they're staffed has changed.
Yeah.
Now when you can walk into a film studio, show up on your first, I remember the TV show Once Upon a Time when I showed up I showed up, and on the second season when I did the episode with Jorge Garcia, where he's the giant from the Jack and the Beanstalk story, and I play his brother. Well, the table that we're sitting at and the chairs that we're sitting at were there. The entire rest of the studio was green. The ceiling, the walls, the floor, everything was green except the table we're sitting at. But here's the crazy blow your mind thing. You walk over to the monitor and I'm sitting in a castle with candles and windows and lights and things in the distance. And then I walk back to set and I'm sitting in a green room. I go back over there and I look at the monitor and I'm sitting in a castle. It's like the visual effects is so another world now that it already exists. And then they put us in it rather than the other way around.
Well, that's like earlier when you were talking about the lighting.
Yeah.
Get rid of all the shadows because it becomes easier from a Photoshop standpoint to click, use the wand tool and click on it. And it's all green. Get rid of it and replace it. Right?
Yeah.
It's an important factor, but it also says something about an actor dealing with it. Any actor at any level, the ability to sit in a green environment and pretend, and that is what acting is: the ability to pretend to like the nth level.
Yeah.
Is a specific skill. Not everybody has it. I'm sure we all believe we do.
Well, I think I saw the interview with Harrison Ford about playing the Red Hulk, and he said, I saw so many of these videos of actors having so much fun doing this thing. I wanted to do it, basically.
To the Red Hulk, we should also mention the fact that they fucking designed that around him. Holy shit, it looks incredible. It looks amazing. Oh my God, he looks fucking great. That is
when you have an actor who's been doing this since the 60s and he sees other actors having fun in their little mocap suits and just have the camera right there in your face and capturing all your facial features and everything, and realizing that I can just show up. I don't have to go through hair and makeup and do all that stuff and have this much fun, and to be in your 80s and still want that opportunity.
Harrison Ford, like his introduction to this would have been blue screen, right?
Yeah.
Like, so when you look at, as Star Wars was mentioned earlier, you can see a faint outline on everybody. You can see blue screen when it happens. Green screen's a little different. It's easier to fucking collect it and get rid of it. It is,
but even then, with his films, it was primarily for like if they were going to show them flying through space, they'd have the windshield, and then they'd have the blue screen outside, and then they would superimpose like the stars and all that stuff going by. But they still built massive sets, and they still had the world that they didn't have to like completely imagine anything. They still had sets built, and they still had stuff around them. Whereas by the time it got to Phantom Menace, now they only had 10-foot high sets, and then the rest was all just green screen after that. And then by the time they get to the films that they're making now, it's like Robert Rodriguez in his back garage, like when he did what's the Frank Miller thing there. What's the film that?
Hold on.
You know what I'm talking about.
Sin City, and then there was the
Sin City, and then the follow-up other one.
Next one after that, which was not the Phantom.
No, but I know.
Fucking Frank,
I can't remember it.
Yeah,
he has produced it, I think.
Yeah. Well, he even on Sin City, Frank Miller co-directed with him because he says I cannot do this film justice unless I'm associated with you because this is your work. So
they had to have somebody that knew what the frames looked like.
Yeah.
It worked.
But the fact that was basically shot in his garage, basically all you need now is put a camera in front of an actor, and the rest of it we can draw in later.
See, I think the House of Dragons or Game of Thrones a lot as it comes to that.
Yeah.
You see the background stuff, and it's basically just a green drape over a lump of foam, essentially. Yeah. That's the dragon. And you see the screen, and it's amazing.
Yeah. And then you see the actor, they put the actor on top of the lump of foam, and they move the lump of foam, and the actor's moving, and then you watch it, and he's flying on a dragon.
And that's back to, everybody has to pretend, and that's the point. That's what, acting really is, the ability to pretend to, the nth degree. The ability to make it real by your reaction.
Yeah, well, talking about that, going back to what I was saying originally about how they used to shoot 16 millimeter for TV, and when I did The Outer Limits, and they had that one special effects shot where they say, "Okay, here's the
Outer Limits." You're talking about the version the 90s Outer Limits, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My episode was one of the rare comedic episodes of Outer Limits. So it was still science fiction, but it had Colin Mochrie and Mackenzie Phillips. And it's very funny. And we're all basically a bunch of cosplay science nerds going to a convention. And there's a conspiracy happens at a convention. So it's all these science fiction nerds. And I play a guy who's basically, my name is Silverface, and I'm basically I'm dressed up as a alien. So I'm silver from head to toe. We shaved my head, painted my head. I basically look like a 500-pound ball bearing. But what I was getting at, I was talking about, the imagination part of it. The scene that they shot where they have the little briefcase, and the guy opens the briefcase, and the part of the spaceship comes out of the briefcase and is floating in front of us. And then the camera pulls away to show the group of us. There's about 10 of us. We're all standing in a semicircle around this. and it shows us all looking at this thing. And we were talking about using your imagination as it's panning by all the actors. We're all looking at where this thing is supposed to be, where they told us to look. And then it cuts to Mackenzie Phillips, and she's looking over here somewhere. And nothing takes you out of a moment more than 9 actors all looking at the imaginary thing floating, and then the lead actress is looking about 6 inches to the left. So because you shot it, you got to use it.
From somebody who, so if you enjoy the show, though, the same thing is like, this is a good thing to end it on, would be my guess. Yeah. You as a fan, somebody who enjoys the genre, somebody who enjoys the shows, you enter into an agreement, an unspoken agreement with the people that produce it. You will disregard the wires, provided that whoever has done it has made an attempt to make sure the wires aren't obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah? I mean, there was something to that. Like the original Star Wars movies, Yoda might have been a puppet.
Yeah.
But you will ignore it entirely, provided they do their best to make sure it's not obvious.
Yeah, and a lot of these movies, when they upscale them or whatever they call it, like now they're making, taking everything and making it 4K. Right. Not everything needs to be 4K. It
actually hurts.
Yeah.
A lot that it fucks up.
A lot of stuff got lost in the grain. You don't need, because now you're going to see all that fish line, and you're going to start seeing all of the special effects, the secrets behind them, because everything is getting too clear.
And it takes you straight out of it. It always does. I mean,
it's no different than George Lucas going in and fixing his mistakes from 30 years ago. How's about that's the film that we fell in love with? Leave it alone. It had its own charm.
Yeah.
So all the shotguns into walkie-talkies.
Taking cigarettes out from E.T., and all that kind of stuff.
I do understand the idea behind it. I get why. But at the same time, man, who are you doing it for? The people that want to watch this, they don't care.
I follow a lot of these horror community groups and stuff on Facebook, and there are people who will only watch certain movies on VHS because it has the grain and it's what they fell in love with, because that's how they first saw a movie.
I had the original Star Wars trilogy on VHS prior to George Lucas changing anything.
Yeah. There was a black box set I had.
Yeah.
Did you have that with the 3?
I had all 3, and it was Darth Vader's picture on the side.
Yeah.
It was fucking wonderful. I sold it because I needed to make rent.
Yep.
I made a shitload of money off that thing, just the VHSs, because they weren't messed with.
Yeah.
They were not adapted. There was no CGI dropped in.
Yeah.
So after I brought it to the person, I was like, I'm just selling VHS movies. And he was like, oh my God, that's the original trilogy. I was like, yes, it is. It is 100% the original. And they were like, okay, cool. I'll give you $30. I was like, no, you won't. I took it back. And they're like, I will give you 130. I was like, yes, you will. It was for that reason. It was literally like people want to see the original, and not because it was a moment in time, because that was the way it was meant to be seen.
Yeah, and good luck getting it now.
There's that too. I do. You know what's fucked up is I regret selling it.
Yeah,
like I really do. There's a lot that has changed in the movies that I love, the things that I enjoy, that I know will never be the same again. It's not a bad thing. I understand that things change. I get it. Okay. But there is something to it. It's not just nostalgia. It's because the original version was the way it was meant.
Well, did you get the opportunity to go to the drive-in?
If I had a drive-in that I could get to, I'd go in a heartbeat.
Yeah, we have a couple around here.
I ever saw. It was nice.
What was that?
9 to 5.
At the drive-in.
I ever saw.
Wow.
Sat and I watched 9 to 5. I watched Dolly Parton, and I remember when I was a little kid, very little, but I remember the moment where what's her name is doing the Disney ripoff, and all the little birds are floating in and talking to her. Or Lily Tomlin when someone is sitting there dealing with that shit, I remember that. It stands out to me. It is a moment in my history that is still now. It's important to me.
I saw the original Batman, the Tim Burton, 1989. I saw that at the drive-in.
I think my first drive-in was Land Before Time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Great. I think that would.
I was 4 years old when my parents took me. The first thing I saw at the drive-in was It's Alive from, I think, 1974. And, the parents may thought the 4-year-old was asleep on the back seat. There's no 4-year-old sleeping through It's Alive, let me tell you. Especially when the speakers are in the car.
Mr. Harth, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Talking to you again. I'm hoping we can do this again.
It never has to be about me. It can just be about movies. We can just talk about stuff because I'm a fan myself.
It was meant for. I mean, literally. We have an insider perspective, which it's kind of important. There are things that I have learned through our discussions that make me happy. Yeah. My assumption is anybody that comes across this will feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me again. Yep. I've had this whole time. I've got vegetarian chili in the crock pot, and for the last 2 hours, I've had to keep pushing my head back as it keeps drifting towards the smells.
I've been waiting because I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. I really hope we can schedule another one of these. Part 3, and we'll run with it. Hopefully get some other people on here for that.
Yeah.
Other members of this particular group that would love to talk to you.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be fun. So I'll let you go for tonight, and we'll make a part 3 in the future sometime.
Yep, that's the plan.
Okay. Have a good one. Thank you for having me. Yep. Bye.
Yo, Dad Minted Geek Den. Dad Minted Geek Den. I'll try that one more time. No, it's enough. I've ruined it. Yeah. Well, your boy Craig Lucas paying me the big bucks to say how thankful he is to you. He's so thankful. Yeah. You, James, Billy, Jason, Sunshine. He's giving massive props to you. I'm not sure why. I've seen you guys work. But he says he thinks he couldn't do it without you. He says you guys are working hard to get lots of followers. And the podcast of the Dad Minted Geek Den would be lost without his crew. That's you guys. But I know why he'd be lost without you. He's kind of special, if you know what I mean. As they say down south, God bless his heart. Okay? So keep carrying him along. He needs you. And you keep up the good work there, James, Billy, Jason, and Sunshine. All right? Okay. Sleazy P Martini, check it out.
Hello, Craig, my boy. How are you doing? I've been sent by a very special someone, your dear Brandy, with a special little love message because, you know, even though it's past Valentine's Day, you can't have heart without art. I even wrote a little poem for the occasion. I do hope you like it. It goes something like this. Roses are red. Your blood is too. Your wife Brandy sent me to tell you that she loves you. Oh, it makes me weep. If I actually had tear ducts. Oh, sorry. Must have been someone I ate.
Hey, Craig, how you doing, man? You got an awesome wife here, and I have horrible hair. Oh, God. I need a haircut. I've been having to grow my hair out recently for this movie I've been filming, so I can't cut it yet because I'm not done filming. It's a new movie. It's a horror film called Stream that I'm making with a lot of the Terrifier family, so it's gonna be awesome. We got a lot of big name horror people involved with it too. I know I can name one because he's on the IMDb page, Jeffrey Combs. So if you're a big fan of Reanimator or The Frighteners or so many other things he's been in, you'll love this. It's gonna be fun. A lot of fun gore. Damien is actually doing the prosthetics for it, so you know the gore is gonna be top notch. And also speaking of Terrifier 2 is basically finished. We're got a few little pickups here or there, but Damien is in the process of editing everything right now. So hopefully late summer, early fall, we should hopefully, knock on wood, get a Terrifier 2 release. I can't wait for you guys to see it because it's amazing. I filmed my last big, huge kill scene right before Christmas. And boy, I think it's going to put the hacksaw scene to shame, man. You ain't seen nothing yet, so I can't wait to get that out to you guys. But I'm so happy to hear that you're a huge fan, and I'm also happy to hear that you are such a great father to your two awesome daughters, Samantha and Emma. Your wife, Brandy, obviously loves you so very, very much for her to do this for you. So, you know, you're lucky. Hold on to her. Hopefully I can find mine one day. I keep killing mine. What can I do? You know, they keep splitting on me. Ow, I hit my head. I need a helmet. Anyways, man, I hope you take care, and I will kill you soon.